I needed a strategy, a plan, a way to position myself not as a one-time curiosity, but as a persistent presence in his professional and ultimately personal life. I started leaving things behind, small things, deliberate things. A hair tie on the arm of the chair in the conference room after a meeting where I knew Nathan would be sitting later. A pen, the nice one Derek had given me, on the edge of Nathan's doorframe after I dropped off a supplementary document. A sticky note with a quick calculation that I'd done in my head, stuck to the side of his office door with the kind of casual efficiency that suggested I was always thinking about work, even when I wasn't. I was, I realized, courting him, not with flowers or gifts or romantic dinners, but with the same currency I used in every other arena of my life. Competence, presence, the quiet certainty that I belonged in rooms where decisions were being made. I was inserting myself into his professional world with the same methodical precision I applied to my spreadsheets, and I was doing it so gradually, so naturally, that he probably didn't even realize what was happening. But he was noticing. I could tell. The way he looked at me in meetings had changed, still brief, still controlled, but with a new quality of attention that lingered just a half-second longer than it should. The way he addressed me had shifted too. No longer Miss Newman or Victoria in that dismissive way that executives use when they can't remember your full name. Now it was Vic, a nickname that felt intimate without being inappropriate, like we were already friends and just hadn't gotten around to formalizing it. And then there was the day Tyler Marsh found me in the copy room. Tyler had been giving me space since his confession, polite distance, professional interactions, the kind of careful restraint that told me he was hurting but trying to be noble about it. I respected that. I even admired it, in a way. But on this particular afternoon, I was alone in the copy room on the 3rd floor, collating documents for the quarterly audit, and Tyler appeared at the doorway with a stack of invoices that he needed copied and distributed. "Hey, Vic," he said. His voice was carefully neutral. "Mind if I use the other machine? 4th floor is backed up." "Go ahead," I said. I kept my eyes on the collating machine, on the rhythmic whoosh of paper feeding through rollers, on anything that wasn't his face. Tyler set his invoices on the glass and began his copies. The machine whirred and hummed, filling the small room with the smell of toner and the static charge of paper. I could feel him looking at me, not boldly, not hungrily the way Derek had looked, but with a quiet, aching longing that was somehow worse, more honest. "I've been thinking about what I said," Tyler said finally. His voice was soft, almost swallowed by the noise of the machines. "Tyler, I know you don't feel the same way," he continued, as if I hadn't spoken. "I know you probably think I'm just a kid with a crush on an older woman, and maybe you're right. Maybe that's all this is, but I needed you to know that what I said was real. That I see you, the real you, and that what I feel isn't just attraction, it's recognition. Like I know you, like I've always known you." I stopped collating. I set down the papers and turned to face him, and the look in his eyes, those big dark eyes that belonged on a Korean drama star, nearly undid me. He was so young, so earnest, so utterly without guile or calculation. He was the opposite of everything I had been pursuing, the opposite of Derek's calculated seduction, of Nathan's strategic attention, of my own methodical campaign to make myself visible. "You're a good man, Tyler," I said. "A good, kind, beautiful man, and you deserve someone who can give you what you're looking for, someone who isn't already involved, someone who isn't broken, someone who can love you the way you deserve to be loved." "And what if I don't want someone else?" he asked. "What if I only want you? Then you're going to be disappointed," I said. "Because I'm not the woman you think I am. I'm not the one who has it all figured out. I'm confused and hungry and making choices that are going to hurt people. I'm not someone to be admired, Tyler. I'm someone to be careful around." Tyler was quiet for a long moment. Then he smiled a sad, sweet smile that made him look even younger than his 24 years and said, "Maybe, but I'd still like to be careful around you, if you'd let me." I didn't know what to say to that, so I didn't say anything. I just went back to my collating, and Tyler did the same, and we stood in that small copy room together in silence, two people on opposite sides of an impossible distance, until his copies were done, and he left without another word. But his confession stayed with me. It stayed with me through the rest of that day, and into the evening, and through the long night when I lay awake in my bed on Coldwell Street listening to Oliver breathe in his crib and thinking about all the men who had wanted me and all the ways I had failed to be what they needed. Tyler wanted purity. Derek wanted passion. Michael wanted a companionable routine. Nathan wanted a challenge. What did I want? Who was I outside of all these wanting and being wanted? I didn't have an answer, but I was starting to suspect that finding one was the most important thing I could do. Love quiet, forbidden midlife romance? Subscribe to Noah's Awakening for more slow burn stories. And then there was the day he stopped by my desk. Love quiet, forbidden midlife romance? Subscribe to Noah's Awakening for more slow burn stories. It was a Thursday, gray and drizzly outside, the kind of autumn weather that made everything feel slightly melancholic. I was working on the October close when I saw a shadow fall across my monitor, and I looked up to find Nathan Reed standing at the edge of my cubicle, his hands in his pockets, his expression casual and interested in a way that made my pulse quicken. "Vic," he said. "Got a minute?" I closed my laptop. "Of course. Please, sit." There was a chair beside my desk, a visitor's chair that very few people ever used, and Nathan pulled it over and sat down, leaning back with the easy confidence of a man who had never been denied anything in his life. He was close enough that I could smell his cologne, something dark and expensive, a scent that suggested leather and smoke and power. "That analysis you sent me," he said. "The Q3 allocation model. I've been reviewing it with the CFO. And," I said, keeping my voice steady despite the fact that my heart was now pounding so hard I was certain he could hear it. "You were right," he said. "The original proposal would have put us in the red by November. We've decided to adopt your scenario B with some modifications, effective immediately." I felt a burst of pride so intense it almost made me dizzy. "I'm glad the analysis was useful." "Useful," Nathan repeated. He smiled, and it was the kind of smile that transformed his face. Suddenly he looked younger, warmer, more human. "Vic, that analysis was exceptional. I've been VP of operations for 6 years, and I can count on one hand the number of times a mid-level analyst has caught a discrepancy but the entire finance team missed. You have a gift." "Thank you," I said. "I just pay attention." "That's what I said," he replied. He leaned forward slightly, and I caught a glimpse of something in his eyes, interest, yes, but also calculation, like he was evaluating me as a potential acquisition. "Listen, I have a project coming up. Something outside the normal budget cycle. I need someone I can trust to handle the financial modeling, someone who can think independently and doesn't need their hand held. It's a lateral move, but it would put you in direct contact with the executive team on a regular basis. Interested?" I should have said yes, immediately. This was exactly what I wanted, a path to advancement that didn't rely on my body or my curves or the slow, desperate campaign of flirtation I had been waging. This was a genuine professional opportunity offered by the most powerful man in the company because he had recognized my talent. But there was something else in his voice when he said, "Someone I can trust." Something that suggested the word trust meant more than professional reliability. Something that suggested he was offering me more than a lateral move. "I'm very interested," I said carefully. "When can I start?" "How about Monday?" he said. He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a business card, thick, cream-colored, embossed with his name in elegant type. "Come to my office at 9. We'll discuss the scope of the project and get you set up with the necessary access. And Vic." "Yes? I'm glad I finally noticed you," he said. He stood up, pushed the chair back, and flashed me that warm, transforming smile. "Took me long enough." He walked away before I could respond, disappearing through the glass doors that separated the operations floor from the executive suite. I sat at my desk for a long moment, staring at his business card in my hand, feeling the weight of what had just happened settle over me like a warm blanket. Nathan Reed had noticed me. Finally, actually. Not just my body, but my mind. Not just my curves, but my competence. He had seen Terry, evaluated me, and decided that I was worth investing in professionally, personally, perhaps both. And now I had a choice to make. Love quiet, forbidden midlife romance? Subscribe to know his awakenings for more slow burn stories. Derek found me in the break room the next morning. I was making coffee, the same tall latte I always made. Extra shot, no sugar, when he appeared beside me, leaning against the counter with a studied casualness that fooled neither of us. "So," he said, "I hear you're moving to operations." I kept my eyes on the coffee machine. "Who told you that?" "People talk," he said, "especially when someone gets pulled out of the finance department and installed in the BP's direct orbit. That's not a lateral move, Vic. That's a launching pad." "I know what it is." "Do you?" Derek turned to face me fully, and there was something in his expression that I hadn't seen before, something hurt and jealous and unexpectedly raw. "Because it looks to me like you've been making some choices about whose attention you're chasing, and it isn't mine." "Derek, I'm not asking for anything," he interrupted. His voice was tight, controlled, like he was working hard to keep it from shaking. "I know what this is. I know what I am to you. But I don't know what I thought. That it meant something. That I meant something." I looked at him then, really looked at him, and felt a pang of something that might have been guilt if I had been the kind of woman who still believed in guilt. Derek was young and handsome and attentive, and he had given me a gift I hadn't known. I needed the validation that I was still desirable, still wanted, still capable of making a younger man burn with wanting. But he wasn't Nathan Reed. He wasn't powerful. He wasn't the kind of man who could change my life in ways that mattered beyond the bedroom. "You did mean something," I said quietly. "You helped me remember who I was. And now you've remembered," he said, "and I'm not enough anymore." I didn't answer. The coffee machine beeped, signaling that my drink was ready, and I reached for the cup and took a long sip, letting the heat ground me in the present moment. Derek watched me for a moment longer, and then he shook his head and walked away without another word. I heard his footsteps receding down the hallway, quick and sharp, like he couldn't wait to put distance between us. Good, I thought. It was better this way, cleaner. Derek was a chapter I was closing, a mistake I was correcting, a detour on the way to my real destination. I had bigger goals now, higher aspirations. A man in an executive suite who had finally looked my way and seen something worth cultivating. But as I carried my coffee back to my desk, I caught a glimpse of Tyler at his workstation, 24 years old, beautiful in that sharp, fragile way, typing his spreadsheets with a focus that seemed almost desperate. He glanced up as I passed, and our eyes met for a fraction of a second, and in that moment, I saw something that made my stomach clench. Tyler still loved me, or thought he did. The boyish, unspoiled love of a young man who had not yet learned that love was not enough. Not enough to sustain a relationship, not enough to build a life, not enough to make a woman feel truly seen and valued and protected. I had been that woman once. I had married that kind of love, that naive certainty that feelings were enough, that passion would sustain us through every trial. And look where it had gotten me. A husband in Houston. A son I was raising mostly alone. A body that had changed and a heart that had grown hungry, and a life that felt increasingly like a dress I had outgrown but couldn't stop wearing. Nathan Reed was different. Nathan Reed was the real thing. Power, money, presence, the kind of gravitational pull that could change the trajectory of my entire existence. He wasn't a young man burned by passion and desperate for connection. He was a man who had built an empire, who had everything he wanted, who was accustomed to taking what he pleased and discarding what he didn't. If I was going to be someone's project, I wanted it to be his. Love quiet, forbidden midlife romance? Subscribe to Noah's Awakening for more slow burn stories. Monday arrived with the kind of crisp autumn sunshine that makes everything feel possible. I dressed carefully, not the burgundy blouse this time, but a deep green silk top that complemented my coloring and suggested sophistication without trying too hard. I wore my hair down, which I almost never did at work, falling in soft waves around my shoulders. I chose a navy pencil skirt that was formal enough for an executive meeting but figure-hugging enough to remind Nathan of the body he had been noticing. And I wore the highest heels I owned, 3-inch pumps that made me walk with a deliberate, swaying gait that I had learned to associate with power. Nathan's office was exactly as I had imagined it. Large, sparely furnished, with floor-to-ceiling windows that offered a view of the downtown skyline. A massive oak desk dominated the room, and behind it hung a single piece of art, an abstract canvas in blacks and grays that somehow conveyed both aggression and elegance. Nathan was at his desk when I entered, and he looked up with an expression that made my breath catch warm, interested, almost hungry. "Vic," he said, gesturing to the chair across from him. "Come in. Close the door." I did. The click of the latch sounded very loud in the quiet room. "Sit," he said. "I want to talk to you about the project." I sat. I crossed my legs at the ankle, a posture I had practiced at home in front of my bedroom mirror, and I met his eyes with a steadiness I did not entirely feel. "The project involves a potential acquisition," Nathan began. He leaned back in his chair, steepling his fingers in front of his chest. "A smaller firm in the healthcare sector. The financial modeling is complex. There are multiple revenue streams, regulatory variables, integration costs that aren't immediately obvious. I've been through 3 different analysts, and none of them have gotten it right. And you think I will? I think you're smart enough to see things others miss," he said. "I've reviewed your work extensively. Your attention to detail is exceptional. And you have something else, something that most analysts don't." "What's that?" He smiled. It was a slow smile, deliberate, weighted with implication. "You have ambition. I can see it in you. The way you carry yourself. The way you've been positioning yourself in my orbit for the past month. You're not just competent, Vic. You're hungry." I felt the heat rise to my cheeks despite myself. "I work hard." "You do?" he agreed. "But working hard isn't enough. Working hard gets you a raise and a parking spot. Working smart gets you here." He gestured at the room around us. The view, the desk, the art, the power that saturated every surface. "I recognized that quality in you the moment you stood up in that conference room and told me my budget was broken. You weren't afraid to challenge me. That's rare. That's valuable." "Thank you," I said. My voice came out lower than I intended, almost intimate. "I'm going to be direct with you," Nathan said. He stood up, walked around his desk, and perched on the edge of it close enough that I could feel the warmth radiating from his body, see the slight rise and fall of his chest as he breathed. "I don't have time for games. I don't have patience for coy. I see what I want, and I go after it. That's how I've lived my life, and it's worked out pretty well for me so far." He paused, looked at me with those dark, assessing eyes. "I'm attracted to you, Vic. I'm not going to pretend otherwise. You're an attractive woman, And I'm a man who appreciates attractive women. But I'm also a man who values intelligence, competence, ambition. And you have all three. To the work, to the safe territory of career advancement. Instead, I heard myself say, "And what makes you think I'm trying to catch your attention?" Nathan laughed. It was a low, rich sound that filled the room and made my pulse stutter. "Please," he said, "the hair down, the heels, the way you've been finding excuses to walk past my office for 3 weeks, the sticky notes on my door. I'm not oblivious, Vic. I'm just patient." I felt exposed, caught. The careful strategy I'd thought I was executing had been visible all along, not just visible, but amusing. Nathan had watched me scheming and positioning and plotting, and he had let me do it because he found it entertaining, because he was curious to see how far I would go. "Does that bother you?" I asked. "That I was scheming?" "Not even slightly," he said. "I find it refreshing. Most women who pursue me are either obvious about it or too subtle to be interesting. You're neither. You're playing a game, but you're playing it well. That takes intelligence. That takes nerve." He leaned forward slightly, and I caught a hint of his cologne, that dark, expensive scent that made my head swim. "So here's my question, Vic. What do you want? Not what you think you should want. Not what makes sense professionally. What do you actually want?" I looked at him, this powerful, beautiful man who had built a career on taking what he wanted, and a personal life on the same principle, and I felt the truth rise up in me like a tide. "I want to matter," I said. "I want to be seen, not just for my body, not just for my competence, but for all of it. I want to be with someone who recognizes that I'm more than the sum of my parts, who appreciates both the mind and the curves, who sees me, really sees me, and decides I'm worth the investment." Nathan nodded slowly. "That's honest," he said. "I appreciate honesty. Is that what you want too?" I asked. "Someone who sees you." For a long time, I thought I just wanted variety, he said. "Different women, different experiences, no strings attached. But lately, I've been feeling restless, like something's missing, like I'm collecting beautiful things to fill a void that won't stay filled." He reached out and touched a strand of my hair, tucking it behind my ear with a gentleness that surprised me. "Then I saw you in that conference room, and you made me curious, Vic. You made me want to know more." "What do you want to know?" "Everything," he said. "Your story. Your ambitions, what keeps you awake at night, what makes you feel alive. I want to understand what makes Victoria Newman tick. Love, quiet, forbidden midlife romance. Subscribe to Noah's Awakening for more slow burn stories." We worked together for the next 3 weeks. It was the most exhilarating and terrifying experience of my professional life. Nathan was brilliant, sharp, decisive, always 3 steps ahead of everyone else in the room. He challenged my assumptions and pushed my thinking, unexpected excellence, without apology. But he was also something else, attentive, present. He noticed when I was tired, when I was frustrated, when I needed encouragement. He brought me coffee without being asked. He stayed late to help me debug a financial model that wasn't cooperating. He told me I was brilliant in front of the CFO, and he told me I was beautiful when we were alone. I was falling for him. I knew it was dangerous. I knew that getting involved with Nathan Reed, the VP, the player, the man who had broken hearts and burned bridges and never looked back, was the professional equivalent of playing with fire. But I couldn't help myself. He made me feel things I hadn't felt in years, maybe ever. He made me feel like the most interesting person in any room, like my thoughts mattered, like my body was a gift rather than a burden, and the physical pull was undeniable. I found myself thinking about him constantly, the way he moved, the way he spoke, the way he looked at me when he thought I wasn't paying attention. I dreamed about him twice, and woke up aching with a wanting I couldn't name. I dressed for him every morning, choosing outfits that I knew he would notice, that would make him think of me when he saw me across the conference table, or the executive suite, or the parking garage where we occasionally crossed paths. But Nathan was patient, deliberate. He never pushed, never pressured, never made me feel like the attraction between us was transactional. He was teaching me, I realized, teaching me what it felt like to be pursued by a man who had the power to take anything he wanted, but chose instead to wait, to earn, to prove that he was worth the risk. "What happens when the project ends?" I asked him one evening. We were alone in his office, working late on the final integration projections, and the question slipped out before I could stop it. Nathan looked up from his laptop. "What do you want to happen?" I hesitated. "I want to continue. Whatever this is, I don't want it to be over." "Then it won't be," he said simply. "The project ends in 2 weeks. After that, I want you to stay on my team, direct report to me. Same office, same access, same proximity." He paused. "And I want to take you to dinner. A real dinner. Not a work dinner. Not a client dinner. Just us." "Where?" "Somewhere private," he said. "Somewhere I can talk to you without interruption. Somewhere I can ask you questions and actually listen to the answers." I should have said no. I should have maintained professional boundaries and protected my career, and remembered that Nathan Reed had a reputation that preceded him like a storm warning. But I looked at him, this beautiful, powerful, infuriating man who had noticed me when no one else had, who had seen both my mind and my body and found both worthy of attention, and I felt the last of my resistance crumble. "Okay," I said. "Dinner," he smiled. That slow, transforming smile that made him look suddenly younger, suddenly human. "Good," he said. "I'll make the arrangements. Love quiet, forbidden midlife romance? Subscribe to Noah's Awakening for more slow burn stories." The dinner was at a restaurant I had never heard of, a private club downtown that required a membership and a reservation made at least a week in advance. Nathan sent a car to pick me up at my apartment, a black sedan with tinted windows, and a driver who addressed me by name without explanation. I wore a black dress I had bought specifically for this occasion, fitted, elegant, with a neckline that suggested everything without revealing anything. I did my hair in soft curls and my makeup with a careful hand, and when I looked in the mirror before leaving, I barely recognized the woman staring back at me. She looked confident, beautiful, like someone who belonged in the world Nathan Reed inhabited. The driver took me through the city streets, past the bright lights of downtown and the quieter residential neighborhoods that gave way to older, more established parts of town.